Prime Minister admittedly broke quarantine. The opposition slams him for doing so, and the public service to receive a major facelift. Good evening, everyone. I'm Leah Cooper with your JCN News for this Friday, January 21st. Prime Minister Philip Davis publicly admitting to breaking the COVID-19 quarantine law enacted by his own government is a betrayal of his oath to uphold the law. These are the words of opposition leader Michael Pintard following Prime Minister Davis's remarks at the memorial of Leon Griffin, husband of former cabinet minister Melanie Griffin. Mr. Davis admitted to visiting Park Lane Jewelers on Bay Street to pay for Christmas gifts just hours before his murder, claiming that he was one of the last persons to speak to the deceased at the store. Well, the opposition leader, in a scathing rebuke, says that this was a very serious offense for the head of government to breach laws that he has a legal obligation to uphold.
This irresponsible behavior by the Prime Minister undermines his and his government's moral authority to compel the public to follow laws that he has willfully chosen to ignore. And it is another example of the less than serious attitude of the government in promoting and upholding health protocols to contain and reduce the spread of COVID-19 in the population.
Now, breaking quarantine, according to the health rules passed by the Davis administration, is an offense that carries a fine of $500. The number of positive COVID infections increased in late December, which marked the beginning of the country's fourth wave, which health officials believe was a result of the highly transmissible Omicron variant. Mr. Pintard adds that the Prime Minister's actions was made worse by the government's failure to adequately promote and encourage citizens to become vaccinated and boosted against the virus.
The Prime Minister's action has set back the country's fight against the spread of COVID-19. And sadly, his behavior has been revealed only days after the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention issued a Level 4 travel notice for the Bahamas, advising Americans not to travel to our beautiful country because of the rampant spread of the disease. There must not be one law for the Bahamian citizen and another for the leader. Law-abiding citizens may justifiably ask whether this Prime Minister has the moral authority to lead the charge in the midst of this terrible pandemic.
On December 23rd, Mr. Davis revealed that he was in quarantine after his wife, Anne-Marie, and other family members tested positive for COVID-19. The Prime Minister, who is fully vaccinated and has taken a booster shot, said he took multiple COVID tests and each returned negative. At the time, people exposed to COVID-19 were required to quarantine for 14 days. Prime Minister and Minister of Finance Philip Davis chalking up the controversy over the government's recent trip to Dubai with a large delegation as nothing more than political mischief. The government received much backlash over the decision to have a large contingent of more than 100 to Dubai to attend Expo 2020. The United Arab Emirates government spent $3.5 million to support the presence of the Bahamas Pavilion. Prime Minister Davis says the Bahamas not attending would have been seen as ungrateful.
And it would have been very ungrateful for us not to have participated, particularly after the host country invested near $4 million in building a pavilion and investing on our behalf to ensure that we appear. It would have been an ungrateful act on our part not to participate.
The cost of the trip and the large delegation has been the topic of the day since last Friday. Prime Minister Davis contending that this government is moving and so he expects to hear barks. The Prime Minister adds overall the trip was a success.
We entered into several memorandum of understanding. We just didn't go for the event, but we took the opportunity to speak to the governor of the United Arab Emirates, and we have entered into at least 3 memorandum of understandings. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, I left him here to wrap those up, and as soon as he's back, more will be made known of what the other successes the more particular success is that we introduce ourselves to the world. Many Bahamians went on their own, and they were surprised to appreciate that a lot of people don't know about the Bahamas. And they found that surprising. So we had the opportunity to not just introduce ourselves to the world, but let the world get to know the best of us.
While in Dubai at the Expo 2020, Mr. Davis called for friendships between the nations. Labor Minister Keith Bell says the government wasn't given sufficient notice of the closure of the British Colonial Hilton. The closure was announced on Wednesday evening and affects more than 100 employees. Minister Bell says had the hotelier given the government more of a notice, the government would have been able to facilitate a smoother process and ensure that those employees would be able to move in other areas.
And so now we've started the process. The Prime Minister, I know the Deputy Prime Minister would have met with them, and they're going to receive their redundancy pay. But the object and idea is to try and move as quickly as we can through the Department of Labor to put them in different areas. And so we do have a labor bank, and we invite all of those persons who are being made redundant to come into the Department of Labor and see where they can be positioned or put. We know that Sandals Royal Bahamian is about to employ or has been employing up to 850 persons, and so there are a number of positions that are still available, and of course the other major hotels are looking to employ persons.
Minister Bell adds that even though it's a very bad situation given the fact that the economy has only just begun to open, he invites those Hilton employees to begin looking and allow the ministry to help with finding employment. Our news team also reached out to President of the Bahamas Hotel Caterers and Allied Workers Union, Darren Woods, who says the union met with hotel officials to get a better understanding of the contents of the letter sent to the union and employees this week.
Stating that they will have been closing because we were trying to find out from them whether the closure was a temporary closure, closing for renovations or permanent closure. And at this point, the understanding is that the closure is a permanent closure. I did hear some comments from the Deputy Prime Minister who was indicating that they are trying to I guess, have some more meetings, see if they could kind of avert a permanent closure. It has to do with the overall state of the industry at this point, where they thought they would be, and also something to do with the Hilton brand. So in the next couple of days, we intend to have some more meetings with them, particularly to address the emoluments for the employees there, to ensure that their calculations are correct and everything that they're entitled to once they get to the 15 are in place.
In a statement released on Wednesday, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Tourism, Investments and Aviation, Chester Cooper, says he's cautiously optimistic that a resolution can be reached. And the government of the Bahamas is, quote, deeply concerned about the closure of the British Colonial Hilton. These are the words of Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Tourism, Investments and Aviation, Chester Cooper, on the sidelines of Jones Communication Network's Person of the Year ceremony.
The government of Bahamas is very concerned always about the well-being of the Bahamian people, the workers, and we are equally concerned with respect to the workers of the Hilton Hotel. I met yesterday and again today with the principals of CCA, the owners of the hotel, and we are working hand in hand to see whether we can find a solution or if we can reduce the period of time of closure. As you know by now, the reason proffered for the closing of the hotel was the ending of the agreement with Hilton itself as a management company. And therefore, certain things need to happen for the owners to restore management or management contract for the property.
It's been noted by the DPM that the agreement between the British Colonial and China Construction America to carry the Hilton brand has come to an end. Therefore, without a management company in place, CCA is facing challenges in keeping the property open. The DPM says that they will continue to work in partnership with the CCA over the course of the next few weeks to find a resolution. When asked what are some of the solutions on the table, Minister Cooper says this.
We have other partners who might be able to replace the Hilton in its role as manager and flag carrier for this property. We've made some introductions. We have ongoing discussions in terms of our general partnership with the owners of the Hilton, and that's all I'm prepared to say at this time. But suffice to say, there is commitment on their part and ours to preserve this iconic property as a part of the tourism product, and we'll continue to work hand in hand to cause it to continue to be not just an iconic building, but an iconic employer.
The British Colonial Hilton is set to close its doors indefinitely on February 15th, 2022. The CCA also owns adjacent properties, The Point and Margaritaville. The DPM notes that these properties will not be affected. You're watching JCN News. Stay with us.